Hi, and thank you for stopping by. This is Parenting on Empty podcast number 28. Challenge number one
is to listen to your children. Make this Listening to Children Month. And as we just quickly chatted about, so what kind of listening and how do you legislate that and how do you even assess whether you've done it? The challenge is once a week, ask each one of your children, no matter how many you have. If you have 30, this could take you a while. But take each one of your children and ask them 3 questions. And truly listen to their answers. Don't rush them along. Don't coach them. Don't prompt.
That's the challenge right there.
That is the challenge.
Because you're thinking, what do you mean listen? I listen to my kids all the time. They come home from school and all they do is talk about things they want or things they didn't do and bicker and holler and argue and ask for the keys to the car. I listen to them all the time. What big challenge is that?
But this is where you're deliberately sitting down, side by side, face to face, and you're looking at your child, and basically what you're communicating is, you are important to me and I want to know what goes on in your brain. Most of the time, I think we don't have a clue what's going on inside there. And if someone were to give you a quiz on your own children, it would be interesting if you could actually pass that quiz as far as what are your children's desires? What are the things that your child really finds themselves excited about? What would they like to do with their future? What is the most challenging thing for them today? What do they dread the most at school or at church or at home? Who's their favorite sibling? What do they like best about mom and dad? I'm not sure that most of us really know the answers to all of that.
Right.
We become experts a lot of times on our kids' behaviors and we can observe how they interact with one another, but that doesn't necessarily give you an insight into what's going on inside their brains. And I have started to do this very intentionally recently and have found it very rewarding. And you usually start with pretty shallow questions like, so if you could go anywhere you wanted to go today and spend the day there, where would you go? And, there's nothing deep about that or profound, but you can learn some things by a follow-up question. So if your kid said, well, I would go to the zoo. Why? What is it at the zoo that you really, really love?
Right, and that's really the only rule. Not a lot of rules to these challenges, but that's the only rule is you can ask a follow-up question, but the challenge is, can you just listen and not give advice or not try to correct or comment? It's okay to say, well, that sounds exciting. Tell me more about it. But as parents, I can speak for myself, the challenge for me is that you want to embellish, perhaps, the answer, or you might be impatient, and you want them to hurry up with what they're saying, and so you fill in the blanks.
Sometimes what they say isn't going to make sense.
And you might even say that, that doesn't make any sense. What are you talking about? And the challenge is not to say that.
Exactly, because that shuts the conversation down.
Correct. Don't editorialize.
Editorialize.
Editorialize. That's a big word.
It's a big word. And the other part is that a lot of times our kids say what they know will make us happy and what they know we want them to say. So the challenge is, even in your affirming statements, they kind of need to be more, that's interesting. Instead of, oh, that's a good answer. Because they're not answering this question to please you. They're answering the question to show you what's going on inside their brain, not how well they have you figured out.
Exactly.
And I was kind of inspired for this because the school that our daughter attends, every morning they have what's called a morning meeting. Highly original name, much like Parenting Challenge.
The Parenting Challenges!
Dun, dun, dun. And in the meeting, the teachers will bring either a proverb or a famous saying, or sometimes not even a famous saying, just a saying that they found in a book or something like that. And we'll ask the students, what do you think it means? Well, this is a school that covers grades 1 through 8. And taking a proverb that has deep and profound meaning and asking a first grader, what does it mean? Half the time they don't have a clue.
Yeah.
And so their answer is way off base. I mean, it's just wrong a lot of the times. I shouldn't say a lot of times. Part of the time. The answer is just wrong. There's no way that proverb means that. But I think in our effort to teach our kids, sometimes we go a little bit overboard in correcting them.
Right.
And so we don't allow them the creativity to explore their own ideas. And there is a time to allow a child just to talk and to come up with wrong answers and to say things in an inappropriate way, to ramble, to not get to the point,
Right.
to say an answer that doesn't really make sense with the question, to propose something that's absolutely ludicrous. And for us just to shut up and say, or, well, where did you come up with that idea? Or what made you think that?
Yeah, right.
Or is there anybody else that you think would join you in this adventure? How would that work out? And leading questions that will help them explore their idea, but not in a way that lets them know, and here's how I feel about it. Because this isn't on how we feel about it.
Correct.
It's just listening to them.
Right.
Like I just, a little bit ago, was talking to our youngest, Michaela, and I asked her, so Michaela, she was born in India, and we brought her here to America when she was 1 year old, and we adopted her. And I asked her, would you like to go back to India sometime? She said yes. And I said, what would you like to do when we get there? She said, I would like to go see the cats because I think cats are native to India.
Okay. Yeah, sure.
And I said, well, I don't know if they are, but I do know when we were there, we saw a lot of dogs in the streets. And she said, oh, then I would like to go to the dog pound. I said, well, I didn't see a pound necessarily, but there were a lot of dogs that just roamed. I think that they don't really belong to anybody. I think they're just walking around. She said, yeah, I'd like to go see them.
Yeah.
And then she said, and then I'd like to go see my real mother. And of course, that was a difficult time for me to just be quiet. And so I actually broke my rule and I said, well, that would be really great, but I'm your real mother. She's your biological mother.
Yes.
And I should have waited because I can talk to her about terminology another time.
Right.
But I interrupted and I broke the rule already.
Well, you're human.
I am. This is the first proof of that, but
This really is okay. Well, I might have been the second one right there, but yeah, it's going to be difficult, and it certainly is difficult for me. One of the things I try to do with Mariah, our oldest, when we're riding home from her youth group, I wait there for her and pick her up, and we drive home. It takes about 20 minutes on the ride home, so that's a good time that we're together. And I say, well, what'd you guys do? What happened tonight? And she talks about the activities and some of the games they play, and then they talk about, well, we had small group, and they talk about a particular concept. Last time was on the teacher was talking about when you get angry and you get upset, what can you do to help you not feel that way? Go for long walks or watch a movie. And so she was just talking about that. And then I said, did that inspire you to have ideas about what you can do when you get angry or are feeling upset? And she talked to me about things that she did. I like to watch movies or talk to a friend. She said some people mentioned that they like to read. That would never work for me, she said. I wouldn't want to read.
That would make her angry.
Well, I'm thinking, I want to say something here. Like, well, it wouldn't hurt you to read a little bit, or to interject a little statement there, but just to listen, and not to say
this is not a teaching time,
right? Yeah, and not to say, well, those are good, but here's some other ideas you can do too that might help you when you're having those emotional issues. But no, not to. This isn't the time for me to say, well, that's a great time for me to jump on and add to the lesson. It's just to listen and say, yeah, that's interesting. Or again, to ask follow-up questions to perhaps maybe get her to go deeper. And so that is a challenge. It's a challenge not to come up with my own little special version of how I think you should answer the question.
I think it also can reveal something to you about yourself when you begin to try to find things to ask your children, because I've been aware of this concept for a few years, and so I've tried to practice it. It's just now I'm trying to be more conscious and intentional about it. But figuring out what can I even ask them that isn't just a yes or no question.
Yeah, right.
And if at first your questions might get just really short, cursory answers because your kids aren't necessarily used to this kind of interaction, and they are certain that you're not really serious about it. But I think if you stick in there and you continue to demonstrate, I'm not going to go away and I am going to keep asking you these things, that some pretty meaningful conversation could occur. I have now for almost the whole year been, as I drive Michaela home from school, I will always ask her about school that day. Well, she's not a super talkative kid, and so she'll just say, school was good, and that would be the end of it.
Right.
So I have to find more creative ways to provoke her into actually telling me something more about school.
Right.
And so I've asked just some really bizarre questions, and ones that you think, why would a second grader even think that way? Like one time for about a week, I just asked her, so who were you a blessing to today? Who did you encourage? Who were you kind to? Who did you go out of your way to make feel good? In what way did you make somebody else's life better today? And she actually had answers for those. And another time, is there anyone at school that you kind of have a problem with, who bothers you?
Okay.
Not necessarily you have arguments with, but is there anything that is going on that makes you uncomfortable or you just aren't very happy about? And there wasn't any deep conversation, but a whole lot more conversation than good.
Right. And every kid's different. And you might be thinking, well, why don't you just suggest a list of questions that you can ask? That would make it a lot easier. Then we'll just go down and list off the questions. But the questions are so personal. They're as personal as the underwear that you have on. You know what I'm talking about?
It's pretty personal.
It is. It's very unique because every kid's going to be different and they're going to respond different. And the questions need to apply to your kid's situation. So we're not going to have a list of questions of how was your basketball practice because, well, your kid might not be playing basketball. None of our kids play basketball, so we're not going to ask that question. But it's a good question if your kid is playing basketball. So every question is going to be tailored specifically to your kid. So that's the challenge also, is to come up with those questions that are going to challenge the child to respond.
And to respond in a fashion that's more than a one-word answer.
Okay.
It's really hard to craft a question.
Yeah.
That's not a true, false, yes, no, good question.
Yes.
And I think it's fine to start with ones like that. Like you used to play a game with Mariah asking her, what is your favorite? And then it would be fill in the blank. What is your favorite color? What is your favorite food? What is your favorite movie? All that kind of thing.
And we can offer that advice. And that's actually some advice I learned in the retail business when I worked at a deli. The manager would say, never ask a question that can be answered with yes or no. Like, can I help you? No. You always ask a question that causes them to respond. I'd like to show you our new line of cheeses that we have here, and let me show you the new.
These aren't questions, you know that, right?
Yeah, it's true. I know. I don't remember how it was that I sold cheese back then. Maybe that's why I didn't have the job very long. But I do.
Frame the question.
I couldn't frame the question. Hey, it's cheese. You want to buy the cheese or not? So, but I do remember the part about don't ask a question that can be answered with yes or no. So, what makes you excited about cheese? Maybe that was one of the questions I asked. What's the most inspiring cheese you've ever had the pleasure of eating? So.
I did ask Michaela, if you had the choice between being a scientist, a musician, or an artist when you grow up, which would you choose?
Okay. You can't answer yes or no with that question.
And she thought about it for a while. She said, I would like to do all of them. I will be an artist. No, she said, I will be a scientist who uses her art to communicate the science. And I'm going to sing about it.
There you go. Okay. Well, that's good. So,
the challenge is...
It's not just a challenge.
The parenting challenge.
That's what we're talking about. So let's
to ask each
summarize here.
Ask each child every week at least 3 questions, and try to craft those questions in such a way that it can't be a simple yes, no, true, false answer. And if you can, work on developing follow-up questions that ask why, or that just kind of piggyback. Like if a person said, if you could go anywhere in the world, where would you go? And the person said, California. Why? Because I'd like to go to Disneyland. Really? What makes you want to go to Disneyland? Well, because all my friends have gone. What have they talked about that makes you think that Disneyland would be really fun? So that's 4 questions about right now, but really that's all one question.
Right. Now, one thing I'm thinking of is this a question that you want to ask like at the dinner table after dinner when the other kids are around? Because now there's the possibility that if you have several children, that the siblings might chime in with, that's got to be the stupidest answer I've ever heard.
Oh, siblings would never do that.
Well, that's true. Maybe they wouldn't. So, there might be that problem, but then it could be the group dynamic could affect I know the group dynamic can affect how they answer the question to some degree.
If you wanted to do it at the supper table, if you sit around, and I hope that people do still sit around at the table.
Me too. We do.
You could actually structure it and say, this month, every night at supper, we're going to ask a question of a different child, and no one else is going to speak. And we're all just going to listen to this child. And so it's child number 1. Here's my first question for you.
Yeah.
And the siblings could actually then benefit and learn something from the other child that they didn't know before.
Yeah, right. Yeah, and if that works, then I think that would be a good way to go. Maybe if it doesn't work for your particular child or children, you could do it like a one-on-one type of thing.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking, one-on-one, but the other could actually be an interesting approach.
Right.
At any rate, the issued challenge is talk to each child every week.
And we're kind of thinking face to face, right? We're not thinking like FaceTime Or
No,
text.
No texting.
Or email.
No FaceTime. No
Kids don't email anymore.
No
But
Instagram.
no Instagram. Okay.
No semaphores.
Yeah, whatever that is. Okay. Okay, so that's a really good parenting challenge.
And the challenge is listening.
What? Say that again.
What?
Say that again.
Listening.
Got it.
Yes.